alleged forced divorce. And obviously, on remembering all of this, I went down a bit of a Google rabbit. I went into this hoping to learn about the plight of the
It's your
people.
boy Leaky Bands, man. We live. I don't know what more to say. But hold on, I got something to do real quick. I was supposed to do this
Why
before
do
I
they
went
need
live.
a traveling dance show? And probably most importantly, is this a cult?
The Chinese government calls Falun Gong an evil cult. These Chinese practitioners, now in Los Angeles, California, insist that it's a peaceful, spiritual exercise.
Well, you've probably heard of Falun Gong as a persecuted spiritual movement, and it really is. The Chinese Communist Party has done terrible things to it. But you probably haven't heard that Falun Gong has also become one of the most determined backers of Donald Trump. Here in Congress, I'm a member of the United States Congress in the House, right back here behind us. I spent a lot of time working to strengthen human rights throughout Asia. And I've also been a longtime supporter of the Falun Gong and your right to practice in China or anywhere else for that matter. But this paper gets wilder, with an editorial encouraging people who get sick with the virus to cure themselves by sincerely renouncing the Chinese Communist Party. That claim makes a lot more sense, though, when you realize this newspaper sprung out of Falun Gong, a Chinese spiritual practice that involves body movements and meditation. Tell us why folks here in the Bay Area would benefit from a show like this. Shane is a show that must be seen. Its entertainment and production values are at the top. And you can go online to see that many distinguished audience members have said that Shenyun is the best. The show may seem like it is.
I'm trying to get to some video. I keep getting distracted by other videos.
Involved in much more.
What's up, though? What's up, man? What's up? What's up?
Times ran a series of in-depth investigative articles alleging abuse and coercion of students at the organization's Dragon Springs campus in Deer Park, New York. A former Shenyun dancer has accused the dance troupe of human trafficking.
A few months after I got back from Japan, I couldn't stop thinking about that.
Shin Yun. That sounds familiar.
Kept digging and trying to find as much information as I could.
They be, I feel like,
The same issue over and over again.
I don't know.
Contradictory information, conspiracies, and no.
They be
real
all over the
first
city,
person.
right? I know I'm not
They
bugging
are
you.
a cult. There's only
Let me
so
shut
much
up.
from the outside without
Before I run into them. I don't want no smoke.
I needed to learn how to join, and that's what became my next goal. During my research, I learned of a traveling show called Shen Yun, a show that I never personally heard of, probably due to growing up in rural northern Michigan, but it's advertised everywhere. I'm sure that you watching this have been exposed to their billboards or
First of all,
ads in the newspaper before. It's a performance.
see, I'm gonna try to see if I can show y'all that on my side.
Communism, a performance that was coming to Portland in just a few months. And for me, it wasn't just a performance.
Let's see
It was
right
the
now.
next step to getting inside my golden ticket to talking to real practitioners. A golden ticket that cost me $110, which could
First though, I gotta edit something. My bad. Hold up.
with tickets in hand, my plan was pretty simple. Get inside, talk to practitioners, see what they
Bro.
really believe, and if it seems culty, get invited to the cookout. But even knowing everything I did at this point, I was not ready for what was about to happen. Now, Shenyun is an interesting experience, to say the least. They don't allow any filming. Their copyright lawyers are insane. Even fair use review videos have gotten struck down, so I'm going to be very cautious about what I include and what I show in this segment. Meaning I'm going to mostly have to describe my experience, but I do have footage from outside the show, both before and after, as well as some undercover interviews that we're going to get into shortly. The show is at the Schnitzer, one of the fancier venues in Portland, usually home to
My bad. I had to edit something.
things like that. So everyone there was very well dressed. In the lobby, there were a few tables selling expensive goods and books, like you would expect at this kind of performance, as well as a photo booth. And here's a photo of me at that photo booth, a little underdressed for the event. Interestingly, there were a lot of local politicians there being interviewed like VIPs at.
Mm-mm. Mm. I was gonna mm, mm. Chill, bro. Chill, bro. I was gonna try to do something, but I'm not even gonna hold you. I ain't doing that. But yo, man, it's your boy Leaky Bands. You are now tuned in with Leaky Bands TV, bro. I'm watching YouTube videos. That's really what I'm doing right now. So I'm just on some chill watching YouTube video shit. I'm probably do I was trying to do a screen mirror, but I don't want to laggy stream today, so we're not gonna do a screen mirror. What we're gonna do is I'm gonna just play the audio live. That's what I'm gonna do. What y'all say about that? I think that's valid. Because that's really what I'm doing. I'm just listening
About
to
a
it.
spiritual movement that is banned from China. I thought it was a little weird, and it is a little weird, but it'll make sense later. Politicians weren't the only ones being interviewed, though. There was a bunch of regular, everyday people being interviewed with little field mics like the one I was interviewed with in Japan. And this time, I actually wanted to talk to them, but for some reason, nobody wanted to talk to me. And not wanting to miss out on the show, I eventually just sat in my seat, hoping to have some conversations with people around me, which I did. There were a few people like me who were just here to see if it was a cult, and a few others who were there for various reasons, mainly because they saw the overabundance of
Bro,
advertising.
basically investigating
How
the
did you
cult.
hear about it? How do you not hear about it? Yeah, just advertising everywhere. How's an advertisement? There was one woman sitting next to me who told me that her daughter bought her the tickets to the show because she loved traditional dances. And after the show, I have to admit, I felt a little bad for her because the show is crazy. Like, don't get me wrong, the show has its highlights with fun and impressive acrobatics and choreography, but something about it was just uncanny. Even just looking at the program beforehand, you would notice that some of these performances have an inspiration that's a little out there. One called Unprecedented Crime, which details the brutal story of a young couple on their wedding day being torn apart and put into prison camp.
What?
The guy is beaten relentlessly while his eyes are literally stolen from his head and sold. All in ballet form. I'm not kidding. That was part of the actual program, but it doesn't even end there because after his eyes are plucked out of his head, he's thrown back onto the streets where he encounters Master Lee, their spiritual guru, their leader, who instantly grows his eyes back by simply placing his palm on his forehead. They also have this giant patented screen that's behind the stage that allows performers to jump behind stage, and the PS2 graphics appear back on that giant screen. And they really use that thing. Around half the performances started with somebody down on their luck and eventually transcending into this like Phoenix shooting lightning out of their hands, which honestly was pretty cool, but was a little intense on the messaging front, especially because right before the intermission, about halfway through the show, there was a 10-minute ballad about how evolution could not possibly be real. That performance led to about 30% of the audience just kind of leaving, which was fantastic for me because it allowed me to actually talk to practitioners at the tables. It was my first real chance to ask how I can go deeper. I spoke to a person who introduced me to something called NTD or New Tang Dynasty. She said it was like YouTube. It's not. It's a TV network tied directly to Falun Dafa, just like Shen Yun. I asked her a couple of questions, but she mostly avoided them, and I realized I wasn't going to get her off script, at least not in public. She ended up handing me a few different panelists as well as a QR code for this, GajianWorld.com, which is apparently just kind of the same thing as New Tang Dynasty. So when I realized I wasn't going to get much more out of her, I moved on to the table selling of books. More accurately, one book in a bunch of different styles, specifically this book, the Zong Found. I tried to have a conversation with the people selling this book, and as you'll hear, that went slightly better. Okay, so you dancers, they do Kalanda practice. Which is like mind body exercises. So the body part, they do the 5 exercises. That's the body with the body cultivation. And for the mind, they read a book, which is called Zhuanfang. And the book originally written in Chinese, but translated into over 40 languages. We have English, Spanish, and Vietnamese here, along with Chinese. So So they need to put it ready to cultivate, so they can practice. I mean, they can perform. Yeah, at a high level. And that's the book that is talking about it. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Why was it bad? Well, because I think the Chinese communist regime, communism is like atheism. They don't believe in any Buddha or anything. So this is a book about cultivation, like higher beings and moral values, which the government, the communist regime does not like. Okay. So they're like, we're all atheists. We should all be in this world, not think about anything higher. So they ban the book, and then they actually persecute the practitioners in China. I did that since 1999. So it's been like 20 some years, still ongoing. So that's what we try to bring back to the China before communism. Okay. So communism does not like. Where do you eat when everything sounds good? We know a place. Try multiple award-winning restaurants in a single order. Only on Wonder, a new kind of food hall with 25 iconic restaurants under one roof.
For real?
You leave our legacy in your hands.
For real, for real. They wasn't letting me skip the ad.
Okay.
So communism does not like the.
Yeah, gotcha. One important thing I want to point out before we move on is the mention of her being a volunteer. We found out that nobody besides the dancers and the venue staff were getting paid, at least allegedly. And when we asked her about it, this is what she had to say.
I'm local. I don't know anything. Yeah. So are there, like, why are you volunteering? Oh, like part of bring the extra fund? Yeah, it's because I mean, I feel because I grew up in China, and when I first heard about this, I'm like, it was about like a book about like self-immolation. They made a whole video about it. That was the first time I heard about it, and I was like a pretty hostile to the show. Even
they're not paying this poor lady for this volunteering work.
I was wrong. So I'm like, I have to make
Let me
it
stop.
by helping people to realize what Sanyun is really about, what Hagabo is about. Okay, that's why I'm here. I'm very people don't. Women like, I have friends who wants to go. I said, don't go, don't go. They burn themselves to go to heaven. But that was really a false lie. So
They burn themselves to go to heaven. Goes crazy. I've never heard like that. Is crazy. Burning yourself to go to heaven is diabolical. Scared of people.
They don't do any of that, but the communist regime has been like lying about the show about them for
I'm
so many years.
scared. I'm terrified.
And I feel like it's my responsibility to come in and help clarify everything.
Now, obviously, there's a lot to unpack here. First of all, she's a volunteer and she does this all for free, which personally couldn't be me. And second, she's volunteering. She once heard of an event that ended.
This thing is messed up, bro. Is that which partially could be me?
On practitioners of Falun Gong, but years later feels so guilty about it that she now dedicates her entire life to correcting that misguided blame. And the way to make up for it is by volunteering at a dance show, which like
she's wild.
Hey, let's talk about that.
And the way about making up to is by volunteering at a dance show.
Incidents tied to Falun Gong. On January 23rd, 2001, in Chinese New Year's Eve.
Why he say it like that?
Lit themselves on fire in Tiva Square. One of them, a 12-year-old girl. Another, and the only one to
disrespect her whole set,
was that girl's mother. The Chinese government alleged that there were Falun Gong practitioners trying to reach transcendence, trying to reach enlightenment. Beijing's deputy mayor even said cults exist in every country. The way governments deal with them differs, but resistance against cults is common practice. A statement that Falun Gong wholeheartedly disagreed with. They said it was a hoax, a setup. They alleged it was propaganda by the CCP, orchestrated to turn the public opinion against them and justify mass arrests. After all, this event happened just 2 years after a 1999 protest that I will talk about.
Who thinks could be true? I ain't gonna lie.
The prosecution.
But I don't know.
But since this event, people involved with Falun Gong have made several documentaries, news outlets, and even YouTube channels to push that narrative. A narrative that they've been pretty consistent about since day one, as seen in this article written just a few months after the incident from the Washington Post. Quote, Falun Gong leaders insist that the 5 people could not have been members of their movement, which promotes a blend of Buddhism, Taoism, and traditional Chinese breathing exercises. But here's the thing, that narrative is a little shaky. Almost every source I found covering the incident, every deep dive, every video, all footage has come from Falun Gong practitioners or people connected to Falun Gong. One of the most visible examples
China Uncensored, a YouTube channel with over 2 million subscribers.
Hi, welcome to China Uncensored. I'm your host, Chris Chappell. Now, if there's one thing I hate more than anything else, it's facts.
The host, Chris,
Bro,
pushes
he's
a
white.
very specific worldview, one that is
I'm sorry, nah, I'm not gonna lie, bro. You can't say China uncensored is white, bro. That's like saying Jews uncensored is a Chinese person, bro. Like, who are we to just like that's a little crazy.
Chris used to work for the
Can't just believe something like that.
Times is a far right.
Now, if it said Chinese, what I'm saying is basically right.
Just QAnon. They have
If
a
this
website.
video would have said whatever he just used as evidence for his case or to prove his point, if he would have used a video of a Chinese guy and the title was China Uncensored, that would be more believable for me. Like in my perspective, in my opinion, that would be more believable. But he just pulled up a video of some white guy talking about China Uncensored. Like, bro, that's bad. That's practically pulling up the video of you or us saying China Uncensored. Who are us to who are we to know what China Uncensored looks like? You gotta be like of the ethnic group to make that claim. That's such a bold statement.
But their main hustle are these newspapers. And they seem to be doing quite well. After all, they have Dave Ramsey writing financial advice columns. Now, look, I'm not saying it's impossible a government would do something as dramatic as
That's
staging
not
those
funny.
earnings. History is full of worse things. But what I am saying is that this event, that self-immolation event, is more than just a piece of history. It's a narrative weapon that both sides used to push their own agendas. And that was the moment she was talking about when she said,
They made a whole video about it. That was the first time I heard about it.
now, while that story is wild, believe it or not, it's not the most interesting thing I believe she said during this interaction. The thing that really stuck with me was that she was a volunteer. It's kind of concerning because according
Yes.
to, well, everyone, Chen is the target of a civil lawsuit over labor violations, shady finances, underage performers, and even possible visa fraud, which is bad. But hey, in this economy, you take what you can get. It could be pretty good to be an underage performer because by the time you need your entry level job, you'll already have 10 years experience. But since I'm not 14 or a professional dancer, I don't think I was getting an invite anytime soon. So if I really wanted to
That's
understand what's
crazy,
going on
bro.
outside of this movement, if it was really a cult or just a misunderstood spiritual group, I was going to have to go deeper. And surprisingly, she was happy to help me do that. I got
I'm not gonna lie.
local park to practice.
Within all this is what I'm learning. Within all the experience that I've gotten in my little 23 years of living, my little life, my little 23 years of life, because it ain't nothing. Is that, bro? I would rather like, bro, you could like enjoy your childhood, bro. What do you mean that? Yeah, a 14-year-old could work out. I mean, could dance for 10 years. They gonna have 10 years of experience. Yeah, they gonna miss out on the 10 years of their childhood. You talk about that, dude. That's the experience that you can't get back ever. All this other shit you can experience dancing when you 20. What you talking about? When you 30? It may hurt a little bit, just may be a little difficult, but you can do all of that. I'm sorry, like what? Especially if if you train the body and you treat the body right. Like if you stay healthy, even when you have a good diet and shit like that, you got a good balance. Like you're gonna be able to dance. I'm sorry. You don't break a leg, you don't break a bone, you gonna be good. You're gonna be extra good.
So you'll find people here that do exercises at the park Sunday.
So I can go on some. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Yes.
With my invite to the park locked in, a new book in hand, I felt super prepared to begin my journey of immersion. So early Sunday morning, I made my way to the park where the local practitioners practice. Yeah. I wanted to really understand what they believe from the inside. And here's why. So much of what we
It's
hear
the
about
practice of this right here.
manipulation from the top. But what about from the bottom? What makes people follow? What makes people trust a system like this with their health, their relationships, or even their kids? I figured if I played the part, followed the motions, and did the exercises, that I could really understand their perspective and their ideology. And I do feel like after going to the park a few times, I did begin to understand at least where they were coming from. I also want to say that the first time I went, and really every time I went, they were very kind to me. I never felt unwelcome, even if I felt awkward for being undercover, essentially.
I think some young people they will say you guys are tall. And they hear social media like a YouTuber, some influencer perhaps they to spread
say lies about them or about you might see some on TikTok or somewhere, but behind it is Chinese Communist Party is big campaign from all direction. From the media,
I would
social
like to get
media,
to it though. You can't be making bold claims on people with no evidence, man. I like evidence. I like evidence based stuff. I like when they come with evidence. Oh, I'm out of here. They don't got evidence. They don't got no evidence on the claims they making, yo. Let's hear what this
Great Gnostic gospel called the Testimony of Truth, which is discovered in the Nag Hammadi library. So that's buried in like 400 AD. So it's probably like 2nd or 3rd century AD. And the Testimony of Truth retells the story of Genesis. But interestingly, if you read Genesis, and I mean like the actual account of Genesis, so who are the characters in the sort of Garden of Eden story?
Adam,
Eve,
snake,
snake. Who's the snake?
devil.
Right. Why do you think that? Which it's just sort of traditionally the snake is the devil, but the text never says that. The text never identifies the serpent with the devil.
Interesting.
The concept of the devil, Satan, the accuser.
Bro, what is the
At the
serpent?
time of writing of Genesis, right?
This is like one of those things about did the Fruit of the Loom logo ever have a cornucopia?
Serpent is a snake. What is a snake?
Like he said at the time, like, yeah.
The original Mandela effect.
We equated a snake to being snaky, bro. To being a snake.
The serpent. We're told it's Genesis 3. It opens.
Go
Now,
on with the point.
is more crafty than any of the beasts that the Lord has created, and so Adam and Eve are told, you can eat of any fruit of the garden, but do not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. For in the day that you eat thereof, you shall surely die. Surely die, because the Hebrew it sort of says die twice. It's like you will die. You will die a death.
You will die.
And so the serpent comes in.
Oh my God. It's not funny,
An important word there.
but I'm high.
King James
Sorry.
translates it as subtle. The word is arum. So the snake was more subtle or crafty or shrewd than the other beasts. And it comes to Eve and says, did God say that if you eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you'll die? And he goes, yeah. And he goes, you're not going to die. God just knows that if you eat that tree, you'll become like him, knowing good and evil. And he doesn't want that. So Eve looks at the fruit, sees that it's good for eating, takes a bite, gives some to Adam. And what happens? Do they die? No. What happens? Well, God tells us in the Bible, in the Genesis account, God says, now the man has become like us, knowing good and evil. He must not be allowed to reach out his hand and eat from the tree of life. And so he's banished from the Garden of Eden.
What's the tree of life?
Well, who knows? The tree of life and inherit eternal life. So presumably, in the way that eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil gives you the knowledge of good and evil, if you eat from the tree of life, you get eternal life. And God says they must not be allowed to do that.
So it should have just gone for the tree of life first, which wasn't.
Yeah. Well, so there are lots of theological interpretations here, because interestingly, God doesn't say at the beginning, you must not eat the tree of life.
Mhm.
He just says you must not eat the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So arguably, like,
if they'd Gantt charted this correctly,
yeah,
and they'd worked out tree of life, live forever.
Yeah, do you know, it's actually a really interesting. Like, what would happen if Adam and Eve eat from the tree of life first, and then, well, arguably,
See, this is the sort of insight
yeah.
that you need a productivity bro.
I don't know if I'm too high.
Theological.
Seriously though, it's a great question. I think that the tree of life gives you eternal life, and the idea is that Adam and Eve have eternal life in the Garden of Eden. When they're created, they're just going to live forever at the Garden of Eden. They've already got eternal life, so eating from the tree of life.
And that's being subtracted from them now that they know good and evil.
Exactly.
You're not allowed to know good and evil, and also
have eternal life. So then they're banished, and then they're mortal. So the Christian interpretation of the story is like, well, they didn't die literally, but they died in the sense that mortality entered into the world. You know, they died a sort of spiritual death. They became...
But that immortality was taken from them.
Yeah, exactly.
The fact that you're not going to die now doesn't matter. You are at some point.
Yeah, it's like there's something about knowing good and evil as a human that means that you are going to die. Probably because if you sin, the price of sin is death. And if you don't know good and evil, then you can't sin because you can't knowingly do evil. But if you know good and evil, then because we're humans and we're naturally flawed, we're always going to sin, and therefore we need death. So death enters the world. But here's the thing, right? That's one interpretation.
You know there's negligence with knowing.
Like, who is the serpent? Why is the serpent even in the garden in the first place?
But
you know, like what's the serpent doing there in this perfect Eden? You know, who created this serpent? You know, why can't They just eat from the tree of life afterwards. Why does God? Because God doesn't. It's not like they literally just can't eat from the tree of life. God banishes them from the garden and then guards the gates of Eden with a cherubim with a flaming sword. These stories are extraordinary, man. It's worth revisiting them. So this ancient gospel, testimony of truth, identifies the serpent. It tells you who it thinks the serpent is. It doesn't identify it with the devil.
Keyword.
It identifies it with Jesus Christ.
Who he thinks the serpent.
What does that mean? Like Jesus is the serpent. Because a great deal of the Gnostic tradition believes that the creator of the material world is an either evil or incompetent or lesser kind of God figure, the demiurge. So the material world is created by this evil or incompetent God. There are lots of different reasons to explain why that happened, but it's like not the Father that Jesus refers to. Jesus being like the true God comes down, and when Jesus says, you know, my Father in heaven, he's not talking about the creator of the material universe, because that's an evil demiurge. He's talking about the real sort of spiritual God. So the material stuff is bad and the spiritual stuff is good. There's so much to it, man. There's so much to it. But so the idea is that the God of the Garden of Eden, this Gnostic gospel, the testimony of truth, says like, what God is this? What God is this that sort of lies to Adam and Eve, says that they're going to die, doesn't jealous God, a self-admittedly jealous God, doesn't want them to become like him. No, why not become like gods? You know, he doesn't want it, he's jealous. And then the serpent comes in and tells them the truth, says, like, look, you're these like material creatures created by this God, but there's this like spiritual wisdom, there's this knowledge of good and evil that he doesn't want you to have because he's this evil God. Like, but I'm gonna give it to you. I'm telling you the truth here.
A whole bunch of words.
So this gospel thinks that Jesus is bringing wisdom there. Interestingly, that word arum, the Hebrew word that means shrewd or crafty or subtle, also is translated the same word throughout the whole of Proverbs as sensible or prudent. So there is a reading of Genesis that says, now the serpent was more sensible than any of the other beasts that God has created. And he's the one that comes to Eve and says, oh, like God said you were going to die if you... No, you're not going to die. You're just going to be like him. And he's right. So this ancient Gnostic gospel condemns this creator God of Genesis, identifies the serpent with Jesus, and says that Adam and Eve did the right thing by eating of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So there's one way that the Gnostic Gospels totally upend the traditional understanding of Christianity, and you can see why it's therefore condemned. So that's fascinating, and also this whole belief in the demiurge and the different. Also, to be clear, the word.
To
be clear,
see what else going on.
We're trying to do like at least 30 days in a row. I'm trying 30 days in a row working out. Oh no. Hey, you look the same.
Nah. Why they do that? Nope. I don't know. Just watching shit. You bring your old ass to this crib, my nigga. I don't give a fuck. This over bitch. It's gonna happen, girl. I'm warning you right now, alright? So I don't go for raise saying you. Say. I dare you to. Yeah, this nigga would call dumb funny.
Grand Theft Auto 6 will now release on Thursday, November 19, 2026. This is not a...
Oh, nah, that's take too long, bro. I'm not even gonna lie. Niggas gotta wait a whole nother year, bro. Damn it, bro. I'm not jacking that. Nah. Unmakeable movie, the impossible film to make. Whoa, what was this about? Catcher in the Rye. I want to see this, but later. Alright, I'm gonna come back and watch that one later, bro. Yeah, man. Hope y'all enjoyed today. What's today? Saturday. Yeah, today's Saturday. Hope y'all enjoyed today. Everybody have fun. Be safe. Get to the bag if you're not. I'm probably going to lock in and record some shit. Uh, I, I can't announce this yet, but I'm going to announce some shit in a few. Let's get it. I love y'all. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you follow if you're not already. Follow, subscribe, like,